If you have any questions, well, Ezekiel, I'll try to answer. Yes, sir.
How was it in the war?
How what?
How was it in the war?
How was it in the war, Phil?
How was it in the war?
What-
It was miserable. You were cold. You were hungry. They gave you what they called K rations. They came in a box about like a box of Cracker Jack. And the food in it wasn't too good. There'd be a little can of scrambled eggs sometimes, and some of them in a little package of what we call dog biscuits because they had no flavor and they were hard as a rock. Sometimes there'd be a little bacon mixed in with and usually there were a couple of 3 or 4 cigarettes in a little pack in there because 90% of the guys, I think, in the service smoked. They didn't smoke when they went in, they started smoking afterwards. And then a little later they had what they called C rations, which came in a little tin can. And the way we would heat them up, we'd take off our steel helmets and build a fire and water in there or snow and melt that and drop the can down in there and that would heat that up. And then we could open them up and eat a nice warm meal. Yeah, any other? Yes.
Did you guys have any food or
I didn't hear you.
did you have any
Did
food?
you have any food? We had the food that he just mentioned, but on our tank we always carried, whenever possible, we found some farms some places and we always found eggs. And so we would have eggs on our tank, but there was one reason for it really, and that was to keep the infantry happy because tanks make a lot of noise and they would draw the fire. And the infantry didn't like that, but that they were right next to us. And so we would give them, as to make them feel better, we'd give them eggs because they didn't have any eggs usually. Because, like you said, scrambled eggs in a can's not the best.
Usually had kind of a greenish color. And we had what they called a field kitchen that traveled with us. And the food went through there in the morning for breakfast. It was dark. You didn't know what they were putting in there. And in the evening it was the same thing. And I remember one time they put sauerkraut in it. Everybody had their own load of mess kit. They put sauerkraut in there, and it turned my mess kit black. And I haven't liked sauerkraut since that time.
On the way in the back there. Yes.
Why did the Japanese bomb the U.S.
Why
Navy?
did the Japanese bomb the U.S. Navy? The Japanese had decided that they were going to rule the world. And so they found that Pearl Harbor was one of those places where they could do a lot of damage in a very short period of time. And it was such a difference. Some of you, maybe some of you have even been to Pearl Harbor, I don't know. But you notice they still have ships in there? Well, they're lined up. And so therefore they could just go right in there and actually take a whole line of them out, you see, and that's exactly what happened in many cases. Now, the
Teacher has a question.
yeah,
When Pearl Harbor happened, and that's today, what were you guys doing? What were you doing at that day, and when you heard that news, what were you doing?
Well, that was a Sunday afternoon, and back at that time, families gathered more than they do at the present for some reason. But anyhow, our family was all together, and they happened to have the radio on and heard it. And boy, right then, I was ready to go, you know, and go get them.
well, I happened to be, I went to church in the morning, came home, I was at university, and so I was in a dorm, and all of a sudden we heard it in the dorm that after eating, and I'll tell you, everybody, it just You know, everybody, what are we going to do? You know, it was one of those, and we were all the same age approximately, you know, and we knew that, what should we do? Should we enlist right now? What should we do? But anyway, it was, I happened to be away from home, so, and I
I
really
have
didn't.
another question. When you returned when the war was over and you got off the ship in America, what's the first thing you did?
I don't remember. We were tickled to get back to the United States, and they took us to another camp in there and processed us for discharge and that sort of thing. But just a feeling of elation, you know, like when the war was over, maybe not quite as much, but the fact that we were back home, you know, and we know we're going to be there for good. Why, it was a great feeling.
My father-in-law said that he got down on his knees and kissed the ground.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of guys did. I didn't see that. I heard that. Yes.
We were treated very special
Do you have
when I came back.
family that got killed on the island?
No. Well, I had a couple of people that got killed. We had more people killed after the war was over, actually, than we did during the war, because, like I said, our artillery outfit wasn't up in the front line with the infantry and the army. And what happened, one instance, we were in a little town there in Germany, I don't remember the name of it anymore, but there was a little river that ran through the town, maybe 40 or 50 feet wide, and one of the guys had found a German grenade, and they were shaped like a potato masher. I'm sure you don't remember what an old wooden potato masher looks like, but at any rate, to detonate any of these grenades, whether American or German, there was you pulled a pin, which is a safety thing, and then you threw it. Well, this fellow, and there was two other fellows standing there with him, going to throw that in the river there to kill fish, so he could have some fresh fish. Well, he pulled the pin and put it back like that, and it detonated just like that. Killed all three of them, right there. And they thought they were having fun, but it was not.
You want to go ahead and select the So
Natasha.
How long can a war last?
how long can it last? Right now, we're in that war, and we don't know when the end is going to happen. World War II, it started, boom, and it ended, boom. In other words, we signed paper, it stopped. Even though our outfit, we got, the war ended, but we did not get the message. Some of them did not get the message. The Germans especially, that were hidden up in like, right off Brenner Pass in Italy, they killed some of our people after the war was over because they didn't know that it was ended.
Ignacio?
I forgot my question.
Stephen?
How many bombs were fired?
Oh, how many bombs were fired? Oh, I have no idea. All I can tell you is in England, they were coming over, what they call the B-2s and so forth were coming. Buzz bombs were coming over in England, and we could actually see some of them. Because when we landed at Liverpool, the first thing that happened was we were lined up, and all of a sudden the sirens went off, and they told us, get into the bomb shelters. And so they herded us into bomb shelters, and several of them landed because they were trying to knock out what was in the docks and so forth.
Boys and girls, I don't know. I told my own class, but Mr. Schweitzer is a history buff, and he's in the back here. Mr. Schweitzer, do you have a question you'd like to ask him?
Yeah, sometimes we get to thinking that war is something glorious. How did you guys feel day to day?
Turn around and face the front, please.
What I can say is I went in with the idea that I was going to come out. I carried that thought with me, believe it or not, and I did some of the things that you hear people did. And I don't know how, I was frightened a lot of times. But I survived.
I had no doubt whatever that I would come back home soon. Of course, when the time we went in, they had a song that says, "I'll be back in a year, little darling." But they took you in, you know, you were in for the duration, whether it lasted 6 months or 16 years. You were in until the end of the war if you happened to survive.
Okay, boys and girls, would you put your hands in your lap and hold still? Because I know you're getting a bit distracted. We have a couple more questions. Raise your hand if you have a question. Cody?
Why didn't Japan go for?
I think we had that question. Can we try another one? How about Garrett?
What are the Army or the Marines?
Pardon?
What are the Army or the Marines?
We're the Army or Marines?
I was in the Army.
Me too.
We didn't have Marines. The Marines weren't in Europe per se. It was not there. So we did not have any association with the Marines. We did have with, of course, the Air Force. We had some Navy people at times. So, and the Army, of course, was, and we had the paratroopers, of course, in the Army.
Tell us about your letter writing. Did you write letters?
Oh yes, we wrote letters every opportunity we got. We
You
didn't get mail.
You didn't have telephones.
No, but we
Didn't have
didn't get
internet.
mail on a regular basis. But that was a big event whenever we did have mail call. I'm sure it was a big outfit too. Some of you might be wondering why I wear this hat. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in Washington, D.C., they dedicated a monument to all the World War veterans. And my wife and I attended. And they asked that everybody would purchase one of these hats. And so it has our Veterans of Battle Boat signal, and also the fact that I was in the 264th Field Artillery Battalion, and Arizona chapter number 626. There's one other chapter in Arizona, and it's located down in Tucson. A week from Saturday, we'll have our annual get-together with the members of the Tucson chapter and their wives, along with our wives, and we have a speaker and give a little report on what we've accomplished over the past year.
And that's going to be Bill and his group will be down in Swing Kids. We'll be entertaining us, in fact, a week from Saturday.
Okay, I'll take care of it, I guess.
Guys, you had great questions. I have a question for each of you. How many of you have family that's in the armed services? Do you know which branch? But you guys have family that's in the armed services? Well, I want you guys to remember that freedom doesn't come free. And that when Zeke and Phil, when the war in World War II, which was in 1940, well, when we entered was 1941, they were willing to join, but everybody was drafted too. They were told they were going to go to war. If they could do it, they were going to go to war to protect our country. But as time passed by, now we have a volunteer armed forces. And that means that the people today, the boys and girls that are in the Middle East and around the world, they volunteered to keep freedom for you guys. And when you guys have days like this, December 7th, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, okay? Also, September 11th, I want you to remember that America was built on the people from the past so you guys could have a better future. And I have one more thing for you guys. How many of you heard that Phil and Zeke told you what they ate, okay? And I know that doesn't make sense to you, so I'm going to try to bring it to your terms, okay? How many of you know, do you guys, if you put something inside a tin, okay? and you were really hungry, would you choose to go to McDonald's or eat what's in the tin? Okay, during that time, when these guys are in the war, and also today, our guys that are over in the war in the Middle East, they can't just drive over while they're in the war front to a Burger King or McDonald's or whatever, so they had to, you know, so they didn't eat very well. They certainly didn't sleep very well. And they probably didn't get a chance to do anything for themselves except their mission. How many of you can imagine if you didn't have a shower for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks? How many of you could imagine if you didn't have a good cheeseburger in 1 year? Okay, think about your favorite food, and if you didn't have that during that whole time, that would be pretty rough, huh? How many of you have cell phones? How many of you have a computer? Okay, you know when you're on your cell phone or you're on your computer and you send a message, whoever you send it to gets it right away, right? Well, when they were in the war during World War II, they didn't have that luxury. People would write letters and hope that they got there within a few weeks. So that way they would be able to get mail from people from home, from their loved ones, from their family, friends, to let them know they're thinking about them. How many of you today have, to your family members in the service, do you send a little note to tell them you're thinking about them? That's great. And if you haven't, I want you to talk to your parents or your teachers, and I bet you'll find a way. If you can send just a little email out, there's places that can get emails to all the people in the services to let them know you're thinking about them. One last question, because we're going to wrap it up here, okay?
I'd like to introduce, we have another veteran here today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's Stephen Anthony's grandpa, and he is a retired serviceman. Could you come on up?
Please, come on up.
And could you tell us just about your experiences?
I'll be as brief as possible. I'm Elmer Mayberry, Stephen's grandfather, and I spent 23 years in the U.S. Air Force. My latter years were recruiter. We're talking about the volunteer force. I recruited for the Air Force at Arizona State University in downtown Phoenix for 7 years. I also went to Vietnam twice, and I remember one of your questions. What was the first thing you did when you got back to U.S. soil? I ordered a hamburger and a chocolate malt.
I love it.
And one of the things, and I'll be brief, one of the things that we experienced in Vietnam, both times that I was there, we didn't know our enemy as these gentlemen did. They had an enemy on one side, and they were on the other side, and they fought that enemy. Our enemies was involved with us every day, our everyday life. They served us over the counter, at the bars, at the grocery store. Throughout our lives, they were there. There was no lie, and it was a very difficult war that we never won. I retired here in the Valley after 23 years, and I went into the insurance business and retired from that, and now all I do is take care of my grandson, Stephen. Any quick questions? Yes. I'm sorry? General Westmoreland, four-star general. Big guy. I have a couple of people. Yeah. Yes. The first time was 1964. The second time was 1967. I was in the Air Force. I had no clue, no idea, no information on service. They were there. I'm sure something. Just as these gentlemen said, every day. You never knew whether you would live through till tomorrow. And believe it the knockouts. I wasn't in combat like these heroes here were. You know why I was there? I went over to put a computer in. And the computer was well protected, and that's what we did. I didn't shoot at anyone. I was shot at, but I didn't shoot at. When we landed, coming into Vietnam the first time, that was fire on both sides of the plane that I landed. And actually was fired the second time. But in terms of me returning, I was not in combat. I put that computer in, I protected the computer, and we were well protected by several perimeters. The first perimeter would be intriguing to you guys because it was dogs. It was the Air Force had dogs, and we had dogs that were so alert and good. So one of them, that when you whistle the national anthem, he stood at attention and raised his right paw. It was quite a scene. Anyway, that's all I got, I guess so.
Thank you so much.
Kids, do you guys know the national anthem? If we could get the pictures that were floating around, if we could send those on back. You see them? I'll tell you what, this is what we'll do. This is what we'll do. As it is, we'll make sure that you guys get a chance. But we got a little surprise for you. I'm going to have the veterans.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I'd like to see what you guys can do for are the guys right here. Okay, we have guys that fought in World War II, in Vietnam. And as we go all the way through the course of time, we have right now people over in Iraq and Afghanistan. You guys know the national anthem? Would you guys rise, put your hands on your heart, and with the flag directly behind us, would you let our veterans know we appreciate them when we'll sing the national anthem? Can we do that? Does that work for you guys? Okay, and I'll say, ready? 5, 6, 7, go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what's surrounding me there, and the twilight's last day, whose march strikes the bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch, where they so gallantly shriek, and the rockets rain glare, the waters bursting in air, they through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? Good job, everybody. Put your hands together. Good job. That's right. And as a treat for you guys, I'm going to give you a little surprise, if it's okay. Let me talk. Just need to double check real quick. How many of you know a little bit about M&Ms? Well, I'm going to give you a little something to remember. So when you think about meeting these gentlemen today, I'm going to give you a little something each. M&Ms were given to the troops in 1941. They came out. And do you know why? Well, when they were out in the field, they couldn't carry a chicken or a hamburger, right? If they carried a chocolate bar, what would happen? So what do M&Ms do? They melt in your mouth and not in your hands. So they gave the troops, they started coming out with candy so they could carry and have little snacks. And those were M&Ms. How would you guys like to have a little pack of M&Ms? All right. Would you give the gentleman here a big round of applause? Phil mentioned, Josh is with a group of kids. There's 40 of them. They come from around the valley, and they go out and entertain our troops from the past and even to the present. We've done entertainment for the World War II guys, the Korean War guys, the Vietnam guys, all the way through to now. In fact, tomorrow, our program's going to present its 500th USO show featuring kids for the families of the troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the idea is to remember where we are, remember where we've been, and remember to respect that flag. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.